What is going on, everybody? It's a good day. A good day. It's taken us a while to get back here, but we are glad to be back here with Beaver Dash. We apologize for keeping you all away from Beaver Dash for so long. The transition from football season to basketball season. Me and Gus are both going into our almost second. I'm pretty sure second to last terms of college here, as we're both seniors. So been a rough transition, but we're back and we're happy to be here to give y'all exactly what you want, which is even more Beaver Dash. I hope everybody's holidays was great from the last time we saw you. And let's hop right into it, Gus. Let's hop right into our first topic. Beaver basketball. Beaver basketball. How is it looking this year? How are you feeling about Beaver basketball this year?
It's interesting. First off, glad to be back here. Glad to be talking about sports with you again. And I think it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to talking about basketball with you because I think it's fair to say me and you are more basketball guys than football guys anyway. So talking a little bit of hoops I think is going to be pretty fun, be a good thing for us. But talking about the Beavers, I don't know if that's going to be quite as enjoyable because unfortunately we may have one of the most boring teams in all of college basketball. We're a run-of-the-mill team, like it says in the title. We're 6-5. And really, originally the show was scheduled to go on before the game yesterday, and I would have had a lot more takes to say. But the thing is, until last night when we beat Arizona State, we have not had a good win this entire season. I've been unimpressed with how we played. We have before last night again, we were 5-5. We had a 4-point loss to Washington State, a 3-point loss to Wyoming. Got to win that game, if you ask me. A 1-point loss to Portland, which is just, that's unacceptable. And then we got blown out by 20 points to U of A, also lost to Stanford. You look at our wins we've had this year. We've had 2 wins against Cal, who Cal is probably the worst team in the Pac-12 this year. They're like 1-9. They're awful. 2 wins against them. A win against Northwest WA. Don't know what that is. And then a win over UTSN and Portland State. So, we haven't had there's nothing that I look at and I'm like, oh, that's very impressive, blah, blah, blah. What about you? What is your overall thoughts on the team this year?
Well, one of the toughest things to really get past when we're talking about this team is that Eastern Washington. I'm sorry. Repeat. I don't even know the team. That's the toughest part about it. It's some Washington team that is some lower division. Nobody knows who they are. They're not getting anybody that's over a 2-star prospect, and we blew them out 100-something to 40. Yep. And all the stats that you get on Beaver basketball are inflated because of that game. Points per game for the team, points against for the team. Like everything is just so different because they blew out this really bad basketball team, and it makes the team look like they're better than they are when you look at the base stats of what this team did. But you take that game out of the equation. Let's just subtract that game from this equation. Everything that OSU has done this year has just been unacceptable. We're talking about since Wayne Tinkle came in as head coach of Beaver basketball, things were looking way, way brighter than they did in past few years. Took us to March Madness once, which is great. OSU isn't a team that everybody expects to make it to the tournament all the time. So It took us there one time, and they lost in the first round. I remember watching that game. That was before I even came to OSU, and I was watching that team because I love basketball, and I wanted to see, okay, let's see if this basketball team of this college that I'm going to is going to be good. And they ended up blowing it in the first round and not even making it any further, and then don't make it the next year. The last 2 years of Beaver basketball have been encouraging for me. And then we get to this season, and it's like we lose Trace. We don't have Kyler Kelly anymore. We lose Eubanks 2 years ago. That was already a big hit. Also, congratulations to Eubanks and Kyler Kelly for both being on the San Antonio Spurs. That is awesome. That's big for Beaver basketball.
That's the next Duncan Robinson, Tim Duncan right there in San Antonio.
That's what I'm saying. But the tough part about that is that this season is kind of like a downward slope. Like you already mentioned, it's not a good start. To be honest, I'm not very surprised. Disappointing losses to Portland and Wyoming. Our only Pac-12 win before last night was against Cal, and we beat Arizona State last night. But is Arizona State really that impressive of a team this year? They have a worse record than OSU does, and that's not saying a lot. Arizona State has played arguably slightly better teams than Oregon State has, but it's still not an impressive schedule. And just the upcoming stretch of games that we have aren't going to be fun to watch, aren't going to be fun to talk about. I mean, we're talking USC, UCLA. I have Arizona State here, but we already played Arizona State.
Well,
USC.
before we even get into the looking forward, I still want to kind of go back a little bit and talk about what we've been through to this part of the season. And to me, it's just like you look at us against U of A. I don't even know if I can be mad at Tinkle, if I can be mad at the players. Obviously, they can play better, but it's like we don't have the personnel to match up with an U of A team that has 5-star recruits throughout their roster. You know, you look at our team, and it's like, who is the plus defender on that team? Except for, I think, one of the bright spots for the season. I know I'm going to botch his name, but I believe you might be able to correct me here. It's Warith Alatisha, our JUCO transfer from this season. For his role, I think he does his role really well. He's not going to go out there, put up 20 points. He's not going to do that. But, I mean, he's second in the Pac-12 in blocks. He's, like, top 5 in rebounding. And he's just a really solid – he provides really solid help defense. He's just a solid defender. He's good for us. Aside from that, I don't look at anyone on this team, and they haven't impressed me. They haven't even played up to my expectations. Even if you look at Ethan Thompson, who – yes, I understand he has to do a lot this year. There's basically no other creators on the team with him. He used to have Trace. He used to have his brother. He used to have Eubanks. There's no one else really that's a plus offensive guy with him. But, I mean, he's shooting 39% this season. He's averaging 16 points a game, which is great, but on 39% shooting, and then he's second in the Pac-12 in turnovers. So it's like, if he's not providing that dynamic scoring that he's going to do, then maybe he shouldn't be shooting the ball so much if he's going to be shooting 39%. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, bringing up 3-point percentages, not even just for Ethan Thompson, the whole team as a whole lives and dies by the 3. Mm-hmm. And it's so easy to see if you're watching the games or even if you're looking through the stats. I mean, Beavers are shooting 35% on 216 attempts this year, while all the opponents they've played shot 30%. And I mean, when you think, okay, all the opponents they played shot 30%, but I'm talking like every single team that they've played, averaging that out, shot 30%, compared to the Beavers just themselves, shooting 36% this year. And you can tell in the wins that they've had, the 3-pointers were being made. And then the losses they had, they were just chucking shots and couldn't get anything going. Another thing is, you talk about Ethan's turnovers, the whole team as a whole is averaging almost 10 turnovers a game, almost 11, 10.9 turnovers a game. If you're turning the ball over, man, like that is just the number one rule of any basketball team is don't turn the ball over. Like you need the basketball to win basketball games. And I know everybody can say for any sport, defense wins championships, but like that's the whole point is if you have a good defense, you're going to create turnovers. And the Beavers don't have a good enough defense to kind of counteract that turnover ratio for offense and then getting it back on defense. It's just not possible.
Well, like, for example, I mean, you look at the game last night and I understand, like, yes, we may be a slightly above average 3-point shooting team, which is great. I think that is actually one thing that we can do decently well is shoot the 3 because we have guys like Reichel, we have Lucas, they can make 3s from time to time. But I mean, the only way we can win games is if we're shooting 40%, and that's not going to happen every single time, Let's look at just last night, we won by 1 point against the Sun Devils. What that took for us to win by 1 point, Lucas had to go 4 from 6 from 3. Well, he's a good shooter. He's not going to go 4 for 6 every night. It's more realistic to think he's going 2 for 6. Not only that, Reichel went 3 for 5. As a team, we went 9 for 21. We shot 42%. So, I mean, did we really outplay him, or was it more of like just a hot shooting night from us? You look at this team, and it's like we need so many breaks to go our way to even be competitive in games. On the other side, you look at U of A, we shot like 21% from 3 and got blown out. You can't just rely – if your only offense is hoping to make these 3-pointers, I just don't think that's – it's not going to work long-term. Obviously, it hasn't been working, especially in Pac-12 play as we get into the season. If we live and die by a 3-pointer, I don't like our chances, really.
Yeah, and, I don't have an issue with living and dying by the 3 because that works for teams, but you need to build your team around living and dying by the 3. In that U of A game, I mean, dude, 42-28 on the rebounds. Mm-hmm. If you're going to be chucking up shots, you got to at least be able to go get it and give them a second or third chance. But if you're getting out-rebounded by almost half, you're not going to win games by just shooting. Like it's not possible. And I mean, they were 22% from three on 22 attempts in that U of A game. Mm-hmm. Not good. I'm sorry, you said 21%. I had 22%. Same thing.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Still ridiculous. And I mean, another thing that really upset me about the U of A game is if we're living and dying by the three, it's not like we're getting open looks either because, our guard. I mean, I wouldn't even. Ethan's a guard, but he's a taller guard.
Oh yeah.
He definitely can take it to the cup a lot more often than he would to just distribute it. But still, when he's our leading guard and he's the leader of this team, and you only end the game with 5 assists, and that's the team high for that game.
Yeah.
Then that means that those shots aren't. They're not open threes. They're not swinging the ball, getting open looks that we will. We're fine with. If you miss an open look, like okay, it was still a good look. But the fact that the team high on assists was only 5 is ridiculous. It just means nobody's sharing the ball. It's one-on-one basketball. And when you're playing a team like U of A, who is on paper and just on the court in general going to be a better team than OSU, it's not possible to win those games. It's just not possible if you're not going to distribute the rock.
The thing is with Ethan, I think he's a dynamic player. He's 16 points a game. Like I said, that's top of the pack, up there in the top of the Pac-12. The thing is, it just goes back to our personnel because I don't think Ethan is a point guard. I would not consider him a point guard, just like you kind of alluded to. He's more of a 2 guard, maybe even a smaller forward. He's not a guy that I would like running the offense through. I'd rather have him in like a slashing role or something like that. I don't want him to be the main guy who has to distribute. And I mean, that's probably a result of why we're turning it over so much because we're basically forcing guys to play out of position to a degree. We have Ethan, who's 6'5", and on the court with him, you got Lucas and Reichel, who are both smaller than him, but all they can do really is, on the offensive end, is stay in the corner and shoot. They're not going to be the second ball handler or whatever. You can't run an offense with them, so it's putting Ethan in a really tough spot to succeed, if you ask me.
Yeah, and that's one of the bigger things that comes from losing Trace this year is that, last year Trace was the ball handler. We ran the offense through him. He brought the ball up. All the plays were started with Trace. Now it's Ethan's time to do that, and it's just taking a lot away from him being able to get open on the wing and go one-on-one with somebody because everybody knows if you're bringing up the ball, you're the main focal point of the defense at that point. And plus, just in general, he's the main focal point of this offense. Nobody else really on this team scores at such a high velocity that Ethan Thompson can.
And that's evident when you look at his numbers. I mean, the last 2 seasons, he was shooting mid-40s, right? He shot 44% last year, 45% last year, 44% the year before. He's down to under 40% this year. And the reason for that is because he has to take way tougher shots because all of our offense is so reliant on him, which is frustrating. But let's move on to this second topic, Hef, if you don't mind. And let's talk about these games specifically. Let's start with the U of A game. Were you surprised by this, 34-point loss?
No, not at all. I mean, not even to sound mean to the Beavers. Like, I'm not trying to sound like some hyper-analyst jerk that thinks he knows everything about Beaver basketball. I know a lot about Beaver basketball. I've watched Beaver basketball for quite a long time now, and I'm not trying to disrespect the team in any way. But, I mean, Arizona is just a better team. They're a better program. You should have expected them to come out and play tough. It wasn't going to be an easy game. Still, it's a winnable game for OSU if they come out and play as well as they can. But, I mean, the guards were just immediately outmatched. I mean, they allowed Benedict Mathurin and Jordan Brown to reach career highs at U of A. I mean, 31 for Mathurin, 25 for Brown. And then just like I said earlier, getting dominated in the paint. There was nobody that could stop them in the paint. Their points in the paint were higher. Their rebounds were higher. There was just absolutely no way that OSU was going to match up with their bigs. And that's the biggest problem with this team is we don't have solid big men. Like, I think we have solid guards in Reichel and Lucas and Thompson, even though he's not truly a point guard. But when you look up into like the power forward center position, who do we really have that?
I mean, I would push back. I do like. I don't mean to cut you off, F, but I do like Alatishe. I think Alatishe is he's a solid like help side defender. I think he's one of those guys. He's going to get 2 or 3 blocks a game, just coming off the weak side and getting the block. But he's not, like you said, he's undersized. What is he? He's like 6'9". He's coming out of JUCO basically. He's not going to handle a U of A guy who's 6'10", 240 going to the NBA next year, you know?
Yeah.
But we just don't have personnel to match up this season, which is really difficult, especially when you look at the last few years. We've actually had pretty dynamic defensive play from our bigs. I mean, Kelly, I think, led the nation in blocks last year. Year before that, you had Eubanks, a really solid defender. So it's on both ends, bro. You look at Ethan Thompson, he has to do everything on offense, and then on defense, he has to basically guard the other team's best player. And if that guy gets by him at all, we don't have personnel to match up this season. It's tough.
Yeah.
We have guys, I think, who can shoot the ball. We have some players, but I mean, you look at USC, they got the Mobley brothers, right? You look at Arizona, what happened? It's just some of these teams, they're basically breeding grounds for the NBA. When on the other side of it, we have all 4-year players that's just tough to match up, you know?
Yeah, and it's a big challenge for Ethan this year, I would say, just because this kind of showcases how much of a motor he really has. Mm-hmm. Last year, mainly offensive, and then he could, not have all the weight of the offense on him and would have some amount of energy to put out on defense. Now it's really testing what kind of motor this guy has, because he has to do it not only all on offense, but let's be honest, he has to do pretty much most of it on defense.
Yep.
It's just tough. It's tough. And like you say, we just don't match up well against a lot of Pac-12 teams. I mean, like Washington, Cal, probably going to be the two easiest out of the Pac-12 that we're going to play. But then other than that, everything's a question mark. And I say everything's a question mark because, I mean, it's college basketball. Anything can happen in college basketball. But when it comes to the rest of the Pac-12, I'm really not enjoying OSU's, chances. And the fact that we play all Pac-12 teams for the rest of the season, I'm not expecting an above 500 record. It's not going to look that great. I do have a question here for you, Gus, and this is a hot topic question.
Yeah.
It's been quite a while since he's been hired. His son's off the team. Clearly the team isn't going in the right direction. Is it time for a coaching change? Does Wayne Tinkle get the toss?
I think, we go on for hours on this topic, so I think maybe I'll keep some reservations. Maybe we make this a whole topic next week. But the thing is, Tinkle, I feel like underperformed. Coach Tinkle, I feel like he underperformed the last 2 seasons. I thought last year we really should have been top of the Pac-12. We had Thompson, we had Trace coming into his senior year. We had one of the best defenders in the Pac-12, and we couldn't get it done. We had last year. It's not like this season where it's hard to get mad at these players because we don't have the personnel. But last year we had the personnel. We had Tinkle, who, in my opinion, he was. As far as a college player goes, he was probably one of the best He was one of the best players in the Pac-12, easily. Mm-hmm. Both sides of the ball. He could score from wherever. You had Thompson being second option. I think that's perfect for what he can do, showcase his talents. And then we had a gift with Kyler Kelly coming to our school, transferring there, and he played amazing. Led the nation in blocks, like we said. He was one of the best centers in the Pac-12. So, I mean, that's why I look more at last year for why I would maybe consider doing a coaching change. And I look at this year because it's like, I think even if we have a 500 year, I cut Tinkle some slack because I don't think this team has personnel to win. With that being said, if we go on and we finish this year, 5-18 or whatever, then obviously it's time for him to go. But I'm assuming you're kind of on the train of getting him out of town. What are you thinking on it?
It's not that I want him gone. It's just that I like the guy. I think he's a good coach. I think he's great for the culture at Oregon State, but it's tough because, I mean, when you're underperforming as a coach, your goal as a college coach is to, A, win your conference or your little section of college basketball, and B, make it to the tournament and get as far as you can. When you make the tournament once and you lose the first round, and then the next season you continue to go 5-20-something, and then continue on a slight upward trend and then just fall back down again, I just don't. I think there's better coaches on that staff, like Ethan Thompson's dad, who might be a better candidate for head coach at Oregon State. I think the guy just would know more. And maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe I'm completely out of pocket with this one, but I just don't think Wayne is really going to care as much now that Trace isn't there. Because, I mean, let's be honest. Trace was the focal point of our offense for a reason, because he was really good. and because he was the coach's son.
Yep.
And that's not a bad thing, because when the coach's son is a really good basketball player, that's perfect. But still, now that he's gone, why does it matter? I mean, does he love Oregon State that much that he stays, or does he really care if he gets the boot? Who knows? But I think that in due time, Wayne's going to be gone.
Yeah. And this is the thing, like, I think so basically there's two ways to win in college basketball. I think you have to be the first way, which is the easier way to win. You be a Kentucky, a Duke, the USC and Arizona, and you get top recruits, right? And then you have these guys carry you for one season and they go to the draft. The second way to win, if you can't get those, because Oregon State's not going to get a top 10 recruit, it's not going to happen. The other way to win is you get a player who was overlooked by a lot of those big schools, 3-4-star recruits, and you develop them. And by the time they're seniors in college, they're really solid players. You look like, even though he went to Oregon, like Peyton Pritchard, that was a perfect example of a guy like that. He came in his freshman year, not that great, developed by the end of his senior year, one of the best guards in the nation, right? And he was ready for the NBA. The thing is, Oregon State, while we can't get those top recruits, we can develop guys and get them ready for the NBA. You look at a team like Colorado, right? I like comparing Oregon State to Colorado because I feel like it's kind of similar market schools in a way. They're both in the Pac-12. Neither of them are the flash of the USC, UCLA, blah, blah, blah. But you look at Colorado, every single year they got a top 20 pick. This year they're like, I don't even know what they are. They're 11-3 this year. They got McKinley Wright, who's great. They had Tyler Bay last year, who they developed into a player. And you look at what Coach Tad Boyle is doing over there with Colorado, and it seems like he knows, like, get these guys in their freshman year, they play 15 minutes a game. Sophomore year, they play 25 minutes a game. By the time they're juniors and seniors, they're the focal points. And it's like, I don't feel like we don't have that pipeline because, like we were talking about earlier, you look at Thompson's numbers, sophomore, junior, senior year, they're basically all the same. You know, and I know he has a higher load to manage this year, but it's like we have not – it seems like we haven't really ever developed these players into be substantially better year after year. And that's what's concerning with – that's one of the things that's concerning with me from Tinkle.
Yeah, it's going to be quite interesting to see how this season plays out. But
before we get out of here, let me just ask you this. What would you say this season so far has matched your expectation for the team? Did you expect more from this team? Do you expect less? What do you expect from this team, I guess, going forward? How's it matched up so far?
Watching our first game against Cal, I really thought this team was going to be better. Watching our first game against Washington State, I was not upset. You know, I thought Washington State is a good team. You know, they're well coached as well, and they're a good program when it comes to basketball. But I really expected them to be better. I was sitting on a high horse when it came to Beaver basketball just because of what we did last season and what we had. And I mean, last year's season got ended just because of COVID. I mean, we came off that huge win in the Pac-12 tournament, and we were going to move on to play Oregon. And I quite honestly think that we could have beat Oregon in that game because we beat them in the regular season. We split that one 50-50. And then we come into this season, and I thought that this new branded team with guys coming from JUCO like Alatishe or Maurice Kalou, and I thought these guys were going to come in and really fill roles that we needed to be filled last year. But it kind of just turns out that it's the same thing. You know, like the offense is mainly on one guy. The defense just isn't there. And this team's not going to win a lot of basketball games. And it's really upsetting to say that, but I don't want to chalk it up as a bad season already. Yeah. I have faith in the Beavers in their upcoming games, but it's not what I expected. It's not what I expected.
The thing is, too, is you look at our next 4 games. We got USC. Well, I think that's going to be really fun to watch Evan Mobley play. Who on our team is guarding a 7-foot guy who can shoot like that? I don't know. Then we got Oregon, ranked number 22 in the nation. USC again. And then we got 11-2, top of the conference, UCLA. So our next 4 games, probably I would say those Oregon, USC, UCLA, those are probably the 3 best teams in the Pac-12. Maybe you still have Colorado in there for one of them. But those 3 teams, really tough 4-game stretch. If we go 2-2 in those games, I think that's a massive win. Like I will be ecstatic if we can go 2-2 in those games. Realistically, though, if we can even win one of those games, that's a plus. Because I don't think – I mean, that's just going to be a tough matchup every single time for those next 4.
Yeah, it's just a tough year for OSU to have a down year because the rest of the Pac-12 is having a great year. So, I mean, How many of those guys are going to stay? Who knows how things turn out next year? Who knows? We're not even going to speculate that yet because we're still in this year. So, but we're cutting it short today, everybody, just because we wanted to hop back in, get the feel of things for how we're going to do this basketball show. I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this today. Next week, we'll come back with an even longer show, more things to talk about. And hopefully we see some W's in the Beavers column this year. No, not this year, this week against these powerhouses in the Pac-12. So, all right. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming out. It was a pleasure talking to you about some basketball. I know we talk about basketball every day, Gus, but let's keep it going. Yeah. All right. Let's get out of here, everybody. Have yourself a great Sunday. Enjoy some Sunday football.
Go Browns.
Go Browns. All right. Adios, everybody.